So today we are going to learn how to make some barn doors. Now there's going to be many ways to do this. This is just so happens to be the way that I chose to do it. But first of all, I've already got the track hung. I've got both doors done on this side, but we're going to be working on the other side to make some doors. Got metal just like the barn on the side, and got some metal trim to cover up the edges. I am using treated lumber, and I will go through on how to make this. They slide really nice with this track. Got this track and these wheels from Menards. So to start, what I did was I measured from the track where the rollers are gonna sit down to my lowest point of the ground. In this particular instance, I got 114 inches to the highest point. What I did was I subtracted 3 inches for the way that the rollers hang. You can see it's the same track and rollers and everything. The door actually hangs a few inches lower than the track. That's about 3 inches. So I've got 3 inches subtracted there, and then I want to have a small gap at the bottom for we get snow here in Michigan. I don't want the doors to be dragging on the snow or the ground when it freezes. So there's a little bit of a gap there, but I've got 114 inches. So I got about a 2.5 inch gap that I want down here and a 3 inch gap here. So I am going to be making the doors 108.5 inches tall. I know there's a gate in the way, but you'll get the idea. This is one of the other doors. So my 108.5 inch tall are gonna be these 2x6 boards here. These are again treated. And then I'm gonna put 2x4s in between them to give the metal something to connect to and help hold the whole structure together. I've got my rollers connected up there, and then I will be recessing the 2x4s going across about 1 inch into the 2x4s just to help support, and I toenail up through on both sides and down in, and that helps hold this board to that board with the support structures on the side. Let's go ahead and go through how I did this. So here I got a couple of boards already cut to 108.5 inches. I'm just using a chop saw, cut them to 108.5 inches, and then the 2x4s that I have right there, I will cut to 40 inches to go between the two boards. The opening of my barn is about 98 inches. I want them to cover about 1 inch on each side. So with 40-inch boards going between the center of them and the width of the 2x6s, I wind up with doors that are about 49 inches wide a piece. Again, your measurements will change depending on the opening of your barn, the size of the doors and everything that you need. So now that we got our boards going across the sides cut and the longer ones cut, I roughly laid it down on the ground to show you what we're trying to create here. What I will end up doing is notching the wood down around these so that they sit flush down. Let's go ahead and show you how that's done. So I take 2 of the vertical boards and I use C-clamps to clamp them together, make sure the ends are flush, and make sure the height of them is flush as well. And then I mark every 2 feet down the board where I'm going to put a horizontal board. Every spot that there's an X is going to get cut out 1 inch down. And to cut 1 inch down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my skill saw and cut a bunch of slots, you know, maybe every 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. And I have my skill saw's blade set to 1/8 of depth. What that will do is cut 1 inch down and a bunch of slots going over. When all those slots are cut, you can take a hammer and knock them over like dominoes and they fall right out. Let me show you how that's done. So now I use the skill saw, and like I said, I put a whole bunch of slices in there. You see how they all go down approximately 1 inch, but the only ones you really have to make sure you get are the ones on the ends where the line is, and then the rest you just make a bunch of random slices all through. And what happens then, they just kind of pop right out after you hit them. And like that, you've got a nice 1 inch groove cut in there. Now you can kind of trim this up a little bit with either the saw or a sharp knife or anything like that that you can, or a chisel, that's what I was looking for. A chisel, you can chisel through this and you'll get like all the little bumps off and stuff, but for the most part, it gives a nice 1 inch cut. Now all I gotta do is rinse and repeat on all of them, all the way down. Do the same thing with those two boards, clamp them together, mark them, and make all my cuts. All right, let's get that done, and I'll show you what's after that. All right, one board's done. Just wanted to show you real quick what they look like once you get them all nice and cleaned up. They don't have all those ridges, all of them, but all the way down, that one's done. So I'm gonna move on to the others. Get those done, and I'll come back when I'm done. All right, so we got the second set of boards all cut out, and I have the first set laid down on the ground. This essentially is how it's gonna go. You can see now how those 1 inch slots that we made, it's so the 2x4s can go into it a little bit on each way. Once you get to this point, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure your door is square. And the best way to do that is to take a tape measure and measure from that corner to this corner. And then you again measure from that corner to this corner. And you want this measurement and this measurement to be the same. If one is longer than the other or shorter than the other, you push it one way or the other until your measurement from here to there and there to here is the exact same. Once that's done, the frame is square and you can actually go ahead and start nailing everything together. All right, so now that we got the frame all squared up, we know that it's a perfect square, so it should hang even. Next thing we're gonna do is nail the cross boards to the vertical boards. And what we're gonna do is, I've actually got a air framing nailer, but you can do this the old fashioned way with a hammer and everything. But we're going to toe nail nails in each one of the corners. By toe nailing, I mean basically it's going to go through like this. So that would be how it would be placed, you know, in the direction and everything. That way it's grabbing this piece of wood and going into this piece of wood. But I'll have one go in that direction and another one going that direction. In each one of the boards at each place that it meets the vertical boards. So go ahead and nail your boards into your vertical stringers and we'll show you what's next. All right, so I got both of the door frames all nailed together now. Now it's time to start putting the strap trolley hangers on. This is what I got, come in a package of 2, so 1 pack is good for 1 door. What I did was I laid them out on the door, used a Sharpie, and made my marks where they want to go. Once I made the marks where I wanted them to go, I drilled the holes, and then you go ahead and put the bolts through, hang the straps down, put the nuts on. Now, do not tighten the nuts fully down right now. I'll show you why in a future step. We're just putting them on there finger tight so that the trolleys kind of stay in place. So now that we got all of our trolleys mounted and bolted up, the next thing we're gonna do is I've got this 1 inch metal C-channel. I believe this is actually rain gutter material, but this is gonna work good for me or for this application. So what I'm doing is I'm basically cutting it to fit down at the end lengthwise, and then so you can either use some regular manual snips, or I got this fancy nibbler that connects into a drill. This makes it way easier, especially for the next step that we're gonna do. I highly recommend one of these. I think they're like 50 bucks, but it makes cutting metal so much easier. But basically I nailed the trim piece flush with the edge here. Just used some regular old roofing nails and just nailed these in. Once we put the steel up against here, there's going to be an edge on either side that is sharp as razor blades. So that metal is going to basically go underneath here, and it keeps you from being able to cut yourself or anybody when they're opening or closing the door, or any animals, you know, horses, cows, pigs, goats, whatever you guys have that you're trying to protect from cutting yourself against that sheet metal. That's what this trim is for. It just kind of finishes off the doors nicely, and keeps you from cutting yourself. But that's just some 1-inch C channel. Like I said, I think I found it in the gutter section. So go ahead and mount that all up. When you're done, it should basically look like this at this point: a frame with the 1-inch C channel and a couple of trolleys hung on it. We'll move on to the next step. All right, so now we got our metal siding laid up on here. I measured it already and cut the excess off. Again, this is the same where you're using the drill shears. I mean, that piece is 3 foot long, and the next piece you're gonna end up having to cut all the way from the top to the bottom. So doing it by hand kind of gets tedious. That thing really comes in handy. What we do is we set the first piece up in place here, and the bolts to the trolley want to stick through the metal. So it's holding it up right now. So what I do is kind of figure out where they're at, and then I can use a hammer, and it starts to make an indent of where the bolt is. That way I know exactly where I need to drill. There's the other one. And the last one is right there. So we got 1, 2, 3 spots to drill. So what I use is a drill bit with a step on it to go through this metal. I will slide the piece this way, put it over a piece of wood, drill those holes, slide it back. I will take the bolts or the nuts off of the bolts, put the piece down, and then go ahead and put the bolts on over it. So the trolley is also holding the metal, and the bolts will come up through. Let me get that done and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, and that's what we have when we're done with that. Like I said, drilled the holes and then put the piece back over the top of it so that the carriage bolts can go through it, and then you can tighten the nut down all the way. Tighten it good, because you don't want these things going anywhere ever. Next thing that you're gonna do is, I've got these pole barn screws. They are 1/4 inch. They have a washer on them with a little rubber piece at the end. So once they tighten down, they seal it. There's no water that's supposed to get through there. And you can get them in the exact same color as your siding, so they match nicely. I went ahead and put them all down. You put one at each one of the support 2x4s going across. They go in really simple, just a 1/4 inch bit on your gun. That's all they take. But what this does is, I don't know if you ever put together a piece of that like IKEA furniture and it feels all loose and floppy until you put the piece of cardboard on the back with the tiny little pin nails. This piece of sheet metal siding here kind of acts like that piece of cardboard. It gives the whole thing rigidity and tightens it all together, so it's good and sturdy. Basically just, it holds everything together from separating this way, or it kind of triangulates itself because it's a big rectangle. So that's where you get your strength and your rigidity out of everything as well. Next, I'm going to measure a piece from here to fit under there, cut it lengthwise, throw some screws in it, and then this door is done. Go ahead, rinse and repeat with your second door, and then we will be ready to hang them. So let me get these all sided, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. And there are the two finished products. I just need to drag them out back and throw them up in the track. Okay.
All right, so we got them back here. We have someone up on the ladder to feed the trolley into the track. We got the one side in. Roll it in. Just like that. We got a couple of doors.
Oh, this side's got a gap.
Well,
There we go. Perfect.
Here's the completed project. A couple of beautiful barn doors, matching siding, trim, slide open, right into our barn. Thanks for watching. So one final thought here. I did take a couple of old door hinges and screw them to the end of the 2x6 up there so that these couldn't come off. Kind of keeps it as a stopper so the doors stay up there. If you ever do want to get the door off, you just take that hinge off and the door will slide out. But a couple of old used hinges that I had, multi-purposing. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to ask. I'll see if I can make a follow-up on it if you guys need to know anything. If not, tune in and subscribe to the channel for other useful hints, tips, tricks, and life on our homestead. Thanks again for watching. Bye.